And after 6 months, we still got around to doing anything. Nobody wants to come up here, is the truth.
She used to sit in the chair there in that corner, playing the cello. I think I find it really hard to think that she's gone.
It's sort of unreal, unnecessary.
A waste. But have to accept it somehow, don't you?
Yeah, it's 1 minute you've got a daughter, the next minute you haven't. Look what they sent us. She got a certificate for year 1. Words fail me. And why they insulted us with the offer of a plaque in the walled garden. I mean, have they got a plaque for every dead student? They need a big wall. The people who were meant to look after her, whatever they did, tended to make matters worse, not better. You can't accept what you're told by the University or the Mental Health Trust as being the full truth. We're the only people to have actually engaged a legal team to help prevent other deaths.
It is incredibly important that there is a full and fearless inquiry into the circumstances leading up to Natasha's death.
We want to find out what went wrong so that everybody knows. We want people to put systems in place to fix it. This is not just about Natasha. Okay? This is about change on the national stage.
No, I'm here.
You're here, yeah, I can see you in the picture. You gonna say hello?
No, camera.
Natasha was a very easy child to look after. Quite shy from quite early on. I remember even at nursery, she seemed to sort of be quite shy. She used to play quite a bit on her own. And then when her brother came along, she absolutely loved her brother. As she grew up, she seemed to have friends. You know, she had parties. She always had quite a lot of people coming to her parties. There was a certain amount of this shyness was something that when she was younger I had been a bit concerned about. We didn't know that she had social anxiety. We actually thought that she was getting better, that she was getting more confident.
Hello. You're pretty cool, so, you know, stay classy, will you? That's just, this is normal life for me, you know how it is.
She was very determined, very methodical and very disciplined. And she would always allocate an amount of time that's required every evening or whatever it was to do something, and she would sit there and do it.
She was consistently very, very good at everything she did.
Bristol was her preferred university after she'd been to a few of them and had a look round. She was incredibly independent. We had no worries about her leaving home. We knew nothing about what was going on at the university. That's the one thing she didn't share with us.
I first met Natasha, I think it was a couple of days after she moved into our flat at university. So there were 4 of us in the flat. And I think at those sort of stages, it's always like an awkward introduction. Everyone's petrified coming to university. Natasha was very calm, and just being around her, you sort of felt very at ease. Especially, I think, through the stress of first year, which is, you just sort of have this ridiculous pressure put upon you immediately. Being around Natasha was always quite lovely.
It's been almost a year since Natasha died. I think it will be a year at the end of April. But it doesn't get any easier. I met Natasha first year of uni. We were both in the same halls together. Natasha was quite shy. She didn't want all the attention on her, but she was always so generous. She would always cook food, but then make sure there was enough for me.
She always used to bake quite a lot. That was her definitive trait, and it was a trait that the flat loved. Because you sort of come home every day, and there'd be this beautiful cake or a bunch of flapjacks.
We both moved into different houses in second year, but it was obviously very different to first year when you're living with someone, you're with them all the time, and then second year you're a bit further apart, but you're still thinking about them.
I think the last meal that we had was at Azaz. I was sort of walked back with her. We were just talking, and she said, "Oh, I'm failing all my exams. I've got this exam coming up. I just don't think I'll do it. Like, I'm going to get kicked out of uni. I'm not going to be able to go on a master's course." All the while laughing. I knew she was never a stupid person. She was incredibly clever, but I could tell she was really, really stressed. So I was like, okay, like, let's go for dinner next week. We can go for a Nando's. And she was like, yeah, like, let's do that. And yeah, it never happened. That was 3 days before she died, I think.
Well, Natasha died on Monday, 30th of April. On Tuesday morning, a police constable came to the door here to inform me that Natasha was dead and she'd hung herself.
There was this very odd sense of things didn't feel real, but I knew it was true.
It can't be real, it can't be true. That's what goes through your mind, but you know, we had a police officer sat in the kitchen telling us.
I just remember being in a state of shock and not really believing it. Part of me wanting to cry, part of me wanting to just throw up.
I was just devastated. I just felt hollow. I just remember walking by the river and I stopped underneath Clifton Suspension Bridge and I just stayed there all night.
The rising number of students taking their own lives. University leaders say they are being failed by lack of mental health care. The stark warning follows the deaths of 3 students in the city of Bristol just in the last month.
It was, I think, a toxic year for most people, finding with all this string of student suicides. It was kind of an experience something that none of us had really thought about before.
You sort of had this constant paranoia, sort of who's next, because there were so many suicides, 11 in total. It was at the back of my mind all the time.
You can't accept what you're told by the university or the mental health trust as being the full truth. We started reading up on things. I logged into Natasha's account on the University of Bristol. That was a real eye-opener. There's this correspondence about being suicidal and being taken to the student health service. What else have we got here?
It's all AWP stuff.
Natasha's second year laboratory with formal reports and such like. Natasha's mark sheet for Practical Physics 203. Missed marks where there's some sort of decision pending because she didn't attend the interview part of the laboratory experiment. She'd previously been unable to speak and basically fled out of the room. That led to a meeting with the senior tutor, at which Natasha said she was having panic attacks. I'm reading an email sent from Natasha's email account at the University of Bristol to a member of staff in the School of Physics. I wanted to tell you that the past few days have been really hard. I've been having suicidal thoughts and to a certain degree attempted it. I want help to go to a student health clinic or wherever you think is a good place to go to help me through this, and I would like someone to go with me as I will find it very hard to talk to people about these issues. Thanks, Natasha.
That was almost exactly 10 weeks before she died. I think what's really important is I find it really difficult to talk about these things and I need somebody to go with me.
She knew she had bad marks. She knew she was probably going to fail the module. If she'd failed the module, she might well have been kicked off the course. We didn't know about all of these missed assessments, the oral interviews. She never mentioned it. So we didn't know the full facts.
Natasha was very much one to sort out her own problems and I can't think of a time in her life when she's asked for help, but she asked for help. I know how hard it would have been for her to ask. We did try to encourage Natasha not to go back. She was adamant that she wanted to go back and that she was safe. We now had her in touch with her GP.
We left it to the professionals and it turns out that that was a mistake.
I kind of asked myself why I didn't pick up the signs. I think it was I just found it too hard to believe. Although I knew there was risk, you know, objectively, I'd known Natasha for 20 years. I don't think I could get my head round the fact that she was so distressed because she seemed to me the same person that she'd always been.
I think definitely at Bristol University there are pressures to perform academically. You're surrounded by people who would have been the smartest in their schools and the most competitive. And when you're not achieving in the way that you want to, or the way that you have been, it can be really degrading. I took Natasha's death really, really hard. I thought there were signs that I'd missed. I still think there are. And I did feel a sense of responsibility for her death. I just couldn't fathom what she had done. I think she was such a gentle person, and for her to sort of do something like that, I couldn't process it.
I approached the wellbeing officer of university, asking whether I should talk to someone. I was obviously in quite a dark place after Natasha, and because it was quite near the end of the year, they told me to turn to my friends and family, and then if I still felt bad, to come back at the start of the year, because everyone was kind of leaving now. So I didn't feel too supported by university.
We raised nearly 22,000.
We've had pledges of huge amounts from people that have not known Natasha at all.
We would do exactly what you're doing had it been one of our children. I wish you the very best of luck.
One of the really sad things here is we've had some incredibly generous donations, and it's come from people who have been touched in similar circumstances, or it's quite heartbreaking sometimes.
Total legal fees, as at this point, look like being something around £75,000. To date, we've raised nearly 22,000. If it's going to cost us 75,000, that means we will be left with a huge bill. There are 3 institutions involved. There's the University of Bristol, separately there's the Student Health Centre, and then there's the Avon and Wiltshire Mental Health Partnership Trust. The university need to explain why they did or didn't do certain things, which we believe contributed to Natasha's death. The Student Health Service, GPs, need to explain why they felt it unimportant to even ask Natasha if they should tell the university about what they were doing. The Mental Health Trust have actually agreed to develop an action plan. We've not yet seen that action plan. Today is the first time we've met our solicitor face to face.
Courtroom number 1 is a larger courtroom.
My belief is that some of the previous inquests have not dug deep enough into the systems so as to provide a fuller understanding of what happened.
This is a very high number of student deaths for any institution. It is incredibly important that there is a full and fearless inquiry into the circumstances leading up to Natasha's death.
Management, can you hear us? Louder by the hour, louder by the hour.
It has been a dark time for this university. 11 sudden deaths amongst the student body in the last 2 years.
There is concern across universities about the well-being of their students.
People, not profit. People, not profit. People, not profit.
First, let's hear from Bristol, a city that's experienced the pain of several student suicides in the last 18 months.
We have people waiting for months and months for services that they need immediately, and we definitely need to speed that up.
Students are people too.
The University of Bristol has pledged to do more for mental health after criticism for its response to a number of sudden deaths on campus.
Well, our ambition has to be to get ahead of this, to support our students better, and if we get it right, to be sector leaders.
Power to the people, not to you, Brady. Not to you, Brady. Students, can you hear us? Students, can you hear us?
This is our bag of evidence. These are the bundles for tomorrow. Approximately 2,000 pages of material, some of it double-sided. It's a bit like an exam. You can feel the tension building as the start approaches. In a way, we're going to be sitting there like spectators watching what happens. You have our legal team, you have all the other lawyers, and you have the witnesses. You have someone reading out the statements from people who aren't being called as witnesses. Lots of questioning by the coroner, lots of questioning by our barrister.
The worst fear is that the things that we've found in the research, the intensive research that we've done, you know, will be overlooked or not included or
glossed over by some sort of PR machine.
It's the first day of the inquest. It's been a lot of preparation, a lot of hard work by the family. We've had a significant amount of evidence disclosed to us. And what's important now is we use that evidence, question witnesses effectively, and get the answers that the family needs. It's not about blame, it's not about pointing the finger. It's about hearing from people who had contact with Natasha, understanding the decisions that they made, and seeing if different decisions should have been made, and whether there's any lessons that can be learned for the future. Thanks.
The coroner has restricted a more detailed investigation to what happened in the month of April. April is the month Natasha died. Natasha's story is quite a lengthy one. It wasn't just about what happened in April. Matters started going wrong at the very start of term and rapidly spiralled out of control. How do you think it went?
I'm still really angry. It just doesn't seem fair to Natasha. We put a huge amount of work into getting all that information out. I really wanted to look in depth, you know, at kind of what happened, which we've done, and we've been crowdfunding, and we've got people that are supporting us. Some people that I know that I've spoken to because they want to know how their children's disabilities or mental health is going to be looked after. That's the reason why they funded it. So they want something to come out of this inquest that's going to help students. And if we don't hear the evidence, we don't get the changes, then they haven't got what they in effect paid into.
But, you know, it was not going to be an easy.
Our main story tonight, opportunities missed. An inquest says neglect was partly to blame for the death of a Bristol University student who took her own life.
Why am I angry? I'm angry because we were prevented from getting at the truth. More should have been done to examine, scrutinise, inspect what was going on at the university, and we were prevented from doing that. In contrast with the Avon and Wiltshire partnership, the University of Bristol is unfortunately still in denial. Throughout this inquest process, it has attempted to shut down, block and narrow any meaningful examination of its actions. However, the documents we were able to obtain in the run-up to the inquest and the evidence that was heard in that one morning reveal a deeply troubled picture at the University of Bristol. As a result, our daughter struggled on without any meaningful changes being made to the way in which she was assessed, right up until the day of her death, despite the university knowing that she wasn't coping.
quite a big tidy up. We've cleared out quite a few of her clothes and taken those to the charity shops.
It's difficult because you don't really want to get rid of everything. You kind of want to keep it and preserve your memories, but you can't. You have to move on. I sometimes stop and think, what would it have been like to have a grown-up daughter? It's something that's never going to happen. Yeah, we've had Natasha the young child, we've had Natasha the schoolgirl, Natasha the university student.
I still get nightmares. I don't really sleep. I think about her every day.
Me and Natasha used to go on runs down the downs here. The downs means a lot to me because it makes me think of her, and it's the place I feel closest to her memory.
If we knew what would happen at the end, would we have done this again?
There was never any doubt in our minds about following things up and finding out what was going on at Bristol. We're only halfway. We know what happened at the Mental Health Trust. Things are being fixed. We've got a reasonable understanding of what happened at the university. Nothing's being fixed, so we still have to sort that out.
I think if I was to give some advice to parents now, check up the processes of how people access help before you go to university, before you need them. You really don't know whether your child is going to be the one that
falls through
the net. Natasha is not somebody who I ever thought would struggle with anything at university, and perhaps that's part of the problem is, you know, I knew how well she was at coping with situations, and maybe I didn't question her enough because I had such confidence in her.